Tonight, a sudden U-turn on Trump tariffs for Canada car parts manufacturers. The about-face ahead of a high-stakes meeting in Washington.
It's important for Canadians not to take a victory lap.
And the key Windsor assembly plant that is shutting down for a second time. Who is accusing Alberta's premier of manufacturing a national unity crisis? A son's harrowing story of survival days after the Filipino festival attack in Vancouver.
I haven't seen her since the accident. I was holding her hand.
The heartbreaking account from his hospital room of how he tried to save his mother. Plus, what led to this dramatic crash in Alberta. And getting the 411 on the 942.
942. Yeah.
How does that sound to you?
I don't like it, to be honest.
The distress behind the digits and what some are doing to buy their way out of it.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening. We begin with a developing story on what appears to be a partial truce in the trade war with Canada and the U.S. A reprieve on auto parts duties that were supposed to go into effect on Saturday. The news coming ahead of a highly anticipated face-to-face meeting between the Prime Minister and U.S. President at the White House. Mark Carney will hold his first post-election news conference tomorrow morning, where he will likely be asked about the exemption. Let's get to CTV's Judy Trin in Ottawa. Judy, what can you tell us tonight?
Omar, new guidance on auto tariffs was released by U.S. Customs and Border Protection late this afternoon. It adds a new twist to the situation. American border authorities will charge zero tariffs on auto parts that are compliant with the Canada-U.S Mexico Trade Agreement. But this is only good news for about half the industry.
The Canadian auto parts suppliers ship about $40 billion worth of goods from factories here. Half in a normal year go to the United States. So this is good news that there's no tariff on auto parts that travel as parts to the US. But the other half are destined for assembly of vehicles in Canada, and those cars get shipped to the US, and those cars still have a tariff on them.
Foreign cars and parts will continue to face tariffs, so Canadian-made parts that go into vehicles assembled in Canada will still be hit with duties. Volpe says this is only halfway to a victory and still far from a solution. Donald Trump says he will also give car makers some rebates on tariffs to buy them time to move their production lines back to the U.S. So this trade war is far from over. Omar.
All right, Judy Trin in Ottawa with that developing story tonight. And one of Canada's big automakers is shutting down again. Stellantis will temporarily close for another week as of Monday after a 2-week closure last month. The company says it's readjusting production ahead of launching some new vehicles. Aside from the cross-border relationship, Mark Carney will also have to manage another, the one with Alberta, where there is growing talk of separatism, but also backlash and accusations the province's premier is manufacturing a national unity crisis. Here's CTV's Kathy Lee.
Shrouded in controversy, a bill in Alberta could further drive a wedge between East and West by making it easier for voters to force a referendum on breaking from Canada. It's being condemned by dozens of First Nations across Alberta and Saskatchewan. Opposition that includes a cease and desist letter from 2 First Nations leaders, saying Premier Danielle Smith is attempting to manufacture a national unity crisis, and her actions and statements are breaching their treaties.
Either Danielle Smith is ignorant of the international obligation of these treaties, or she does know and is just perpetuating systemic oppression.
Premier Smith, reiterating her belief in Albertan sovereignty within a united Canada, deflected accusations of fueling separatist sentiments with the bill.
It was never designed to, nor does it breach treaty agreements.
Opposition from First Nations, just one of many obstacles to the separatist movement. A legal expert says a clear majority of Albertans voting in favor of separation is needed.
Even if that happens, it would just initiate a long process of negotiation with the rest of
of Canada.
Outside the legislature, a small group supporting separation.
We're tired of the energy being stolen, and stop.
Growing tensions between Alberta and the East highlighted in other issues, including a court challenge against Ottawa's net zero regulations.
We are simply not going to allow the federal government, based on ideology, to violate the Constitution.
Smith claims she's taking action due to the Liberal government's lack of responsiveness to Alberta's concerns. The timing of the case to go to court remains uncertain. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
And let's bring in CTV's chief political correspondent, Vashi Capellos. And Vashi, for some, this week's result is fueling this sentiment of Western alienation. How does Mark Carney address this head on to follow through on his election night promise that he will be a prime minister for all, not just those who voted for him?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways to look at this, Omar. First, on that speech, I spoke to a couple people in both Premier Moe and Premier Smith's office, and they were kind of off-put by, yes, he said that, and they were glad to hear that, but also his quick pivot to feelings in Quebec out of that statement. So they're looking to see, on the other hand, concrete action, and I think that's reflective of the people who do feel alienated from the center of power. And that sentiment is fairly prevalent. It's not homogenous, but it's fairly prevalent in Alberta and Saskatchewan. So I think the main thing is he's got to produce some sort of action. It can't just be talk of getting resources to other markets. There has to be something tangible that gets done pretty quickly. I do anticipate he'll be on the receiving end of a lot of questions about this because it's not just alienation, it's separation that's being broached in both Saskatchewan and Alberta right now. I think he'll get questions on that in the press conference tomorrow, and I'm told he is ready and willing and wants to address them head on. Omar?
All right, Vashi, thank you. And that news conference, by the way, is scheduled for 11 o'clock in the morning. One of the closest races on election night now has a new result. In Quebec, the riding of Terrebonne has now moved from the Liberals to the Bloc, sending Nathalie Sinclair-Desgagnés to the House of Commons. It also means the Liberals are down to 168 seats overall, putting them now 4 away from a majority. And staying in Quebec, the province is moving ahead with a full ban on cell phones and other electronic devices in schools. Bureau Chief Geneviève Beauchemin on when it takes effect.
From the moment the morning bell rings and at all times on school grounds, Quebec students' access to their cell phones will be cut off, and this starting in the fall. The new rule received mixed reviews from these grade 9 students.
I like being able to, if something happens, I like to be able to just take my phone out and, call my parents or call whoever. But with this phone ban, I'm not able to do that. And I don't know, I don't like it.
Personally, in my opinion, I like the cell phone rule because my cell phone to me is a distraction when I'm trying to study.
Quebec is answering the call from a panel of experts it hired to study the impact of screens.
I want students to be more concentrated. I want students to talk to one another. I want students to succeed more.
Other provinces, including Ontario, Nova Scotia, Saskatchewan, have cell phone use rules. And Quebec has had a ban on cell phones in the classroom since last year. But the province is expanding the range of its ban. This is part of a wider project. The government says it wants civility and a culture of respect in schools. It plans to enact rules, for instance, on how students address teachers.
To say sir, to say Mrs. is a way for the student to show respect for the authority of the teacher.
All public and private schools will have to comply, and they'll decide how to enforce, for instance, putting devices in lockers or left at home. Some parents' associations have long opposed a full ban.
You're looking at children sometimes being in the bus over an hour. If something happens, how are parents supposed to be able to reach their children?
Teachers and principals say students will likely try to find ways around these rules, but many say this will be a valuable lesson. There may be exemptions for students with learning difficulties or medical conditions, but others will have to disconnect. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
A normal day at work at a cell phone repair shop in Alberta took a terrifying turn when this happened.
See you.
Security footage captured the car plowing through the front of the store in the town of Okotoks. It crashed into a wall, which then collapsed into the store.
So many ways that this could have went so much worse.
I swear I had my guardian angels with me.
Watch as the store owner sitting near the window gets out of the way just in time. Police believe the driver suffered a medical episode. And a shocking moment caught on camera at a Major League Baseball game in Pittsburgh as a man fell over 6 meters from the stands onto the field below. The game was paused as paramedics rushed in to help. The man is said to be in critical condition. There will be an official day of remembrance and mourning in British Columbia tomorrow for the victims of the vehicle attack at a Filipino festival in Vancouver last weekend that killed 11 people and injured dozens more. CTV's Shannon Patterson has the harrowing story of a survivor still in hospital who lost his mother in the car ramming.
Helgi Bjarnason brought his mom Vicky to the Lapu-Lapu Festival while she was visiting Vancouver for a taste of their Filipino heritage. They had only been there for a few minutes.
I haven't seen her since the accident. I was holding her hand as I heard the car screeching behind. I looked behind, I saw it. I tried to pull her. I didn't get to say goodbye or look out or watch, move, nothing, no words. I just really tried to pull her.
After Helgi was knocked to the pavement, he looked for her.
I was on the floor and I was trying to look far, and I haven't seen my mom.
With his leg shattered and bodies all around him, a stranger stayed with Helgi while he waited for paramedics.
She held my hand the entire time and was helping me breathe through the pain.
The 27-year-old is now recovering in hospital. His partner Garrett hasn't left his side.
I don't know if I'll be this strong if it wasn't for him, or I didn't have someone sleeping beside me every night.
There have been flashes of anger at the man with mental health issues now accused of murdering his mom.
At some point I was mad, but I remember how my mom would think about this, and she doesn't have an angry bone in her body.
He's been blown away by the generosity of people who've donated to a GoFundMe to help cover the cost of his recovery and bringing Vicky's body back to the Philippines for a memorial.
And I just know my mom's I told you so. I told you so. People are good and they will help.
Helgi is an occupational therapist and knows his physical recovery will be long and difficult, but his body will heal faster than his heart.
The nurses here are saying oh, you're so bubbly. Most of the time I'm not in pain. You're just so positive, and I think that's my mom. That's her. Those are the things I learned from her. Because it's free to be kind. That's how I want her to be remembered.
Shannon Patterson, CTV News, Vancouver.
Devastating. The survivor of another attack in the very facility where she should have felt safest is also speaking out. CTV's Alex Karpa on how she's addressing what is becoming a troubling national trend.
So this is me on a regular day.
Katie Stark has been a children's emergency nurse for 15 years. She deals with a lot on a day-to-day basis, but nothing prepared her for when she was assaulted on the job.
The patient had come at me and had attacked me and then attacked another staff as well.
Stark says she's never felt more unsafe while working.
It's not okay for violence against anybody, and I think we all know that violence is unacceptable, but for some reason it seems to be acceptable for healthcare workers to experience violence.
Calls are now being renewed to improve safety for healthcare workers here in Manitoba. Just recently, a nurse in Manitoba's second largest city, Brandon, was attacked while on the job. Police say a 26-year-old man allegedly approached the nurse where she was spit on, grabbed around her neck in a chokehold, and almost stabbed with a needle. The nurse was able to get away and was not physically injured, but advocates say it could have been much worse.
Frontline healthcare providers, nurses are experiencing more and more violence. You almost get to the point where you think, at least I didn't get punched. I only got spit on and yelled at least I didn't get punched. And it's becoming very normalized.
The Canadian Medical Association says they are seeing a rise in violent incidents in hospitals across the country.
A lot of people who are trying to get care, when they can't get the care that they need, they experience a lot of distress. And what sometimes comes out of that distress is that they target the healthcare providers who are just doing their best to try to meet those needs.
Stark wants the violence against healthcare workers to end.
It's not okay to hit a nurse. And if you do, there's severe consequences for hurting nurses and hurting healthcare workers.
Manitoba hospitals have security present, but Stark says she wants to see better legislation to protect staff. Alex Carpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Coming up, the major shakeup at the White House.
I think he is the first of a number who will go if we're fortunate.
Who Donald Trump is sidelining and why Democrats say he's not the only one who should go. Donald Trump has shuffled out a high-profile member of his inner circle after a massive security breach, but is also helping him find a new job. Joining us now is CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malvin, who has been tracking the developments around one of the top foreign policy officials in the U.S. Joy.
Hey, Omar. Well, first it looked like he was fired, now hired. In Donald Trump's first big shakeup, the president is moving National Security Advisor Mike Waltz out of his cabinet. Nominating him to be the next U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Waltz was on shaky ground for accidentally adding a journalist to a Signal group chat, sharing sensitive information about a U.S. military attack in Yemen. It blew up into a big political scandal for the Trump administration, and the former Green Beret seemed to have lost influence at the White House. But Democrats say they're axing the wrong man.
I think he is the first of a number who will go if we're fortunate, because this national security establishment is an abject failure.
Democrats say Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth should be next. He was also on that group chat giving a play-by-play when bombing attacks would start. But the White House claims no classified information was shared, and so far, Trump is standing by Hegseth. Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, will fill in as National Security Advisor in the interim. Omar?
All right, Joy, thank you for this tonight. Still ahead. Which Canadian company is trying to save Hudsons Bay with a catch? Hudsons Bay has attracted another bid, this time from another Canadian retail giant that wants the brand, but not the stores. CTV's Adrian Gobriel explains.
The fabric of Canadian culture is in part woven into these four iconic stripes. And now there's a line of suitors hoping to purchase a piece of our national heritage.
It's sort of like buying a piece of Canada. You're getting a piece of Canada and a piece of Canada's history.
It's the Bay's intellectual property that Canadian Tire is reportedly eyeing with their purchase bid.
The intellectual property includes the Bay, Zellers, I believe it includes Gluckstein as well. So, it's quite fascinating to see if Canadian Tire wins, what they would do with those brands.
Though Canadian Tire isn't the only company in line. British Columbia billionaire Wei Hung Lee Hu has confirmed that she's placed a bid on 25 Hudson Bay stores after publicly disclosing her intent on Chinese social media. Lee Hu is the chair of a retail investment company that currently owns 3 malls in BC.
We could keep some history alive and maybe rejuvenate the brand.
Canadians have supported the Bay for years.
And it's that sentiment that has led Canadian private equity corporation Urbana to toss its hat into the ring. The company's chairman tells CTV News it too is interested in the Bay's intellectual property, and it also plans to bid on the company's founding charter document, inked by King Charles II in 1670.
It's a critical part of the beginning of our trading history, if you will, in the world. I've always felt that the Hudson Bay Company never really fully capitalized on that brand that they have. In fact, I think over the years they debased it somewhat.
The sale of the charter will take place at a separate auction. As for who will win the Hudson Bay sweepstakes, we should know in about a month. Our emails to Canadian Tire went unanswered today. Adrian Gobriel, CTV News, London, Ontario.
And 2 First Nations groups, including the Assembly of First Nations, are adding their opposition to that auction, demanding Hudsons Bay stop the sale and return any artifacts that are sacred to their communities.
Our artifacts have to come home to us and be cared for in a good way by us. And if we want to share that with the world, that should be for First Nations to decide that.
The group says selling off their cultural items to pay off the Bay's debt is wrong, and they want to review the catalog of items first to identify what can be returned, not sold, to the highest bidder.
Finds the loose puck, still with it. Sets up Pacioretty, they score!
The Toronto Maple Leafs scored late in the third period to eliminate the Ottawa Senators, becoming the first Canadian team to advance to the second round of the playoffs. They'll take on the defending Cup champs, the Florida Panthers. Still ahead, the new 3-digit phone code that isn't ringing a bell. There was a time when it was easy to tell where a call was coming from just by looking at the area code. But a dizzying array has been added over the last few decades, making it impossible to remember them all. CTV's John Venevali-Rao dials into the digital evolution of those first 3 numbers.
For Toronto area cell phone users, it's gonna take some getting used to. A brand new area code, 942, that started popping up on phones in a city still synonymous with the old school original.
942.
Yeah. How does that sound to you?
I don't like it, to be honest. I think we got enough area codes, no?
That was garbage.
Sounds a bit sketchy. Yeah, exactly.
The addition of Toronto's 4th area code getting some shade on social media. Some suggesting 3 seemed plenty. And this new code comes just weeks ahead of British Columbia adding the province's 6th area code, 257.
It's a lot of numbers, and really, it's not just all people using these up. It's a lot of technology that's using these numbers up as well.
With phone numbers now assigned to things like cars, traffic lights, and tablets, demand for them is growing faster than the population. Adding an area code enables more than 7 million new phone numbers to be generated. And back in 1947, when such codes were first established, that was more than enough. Canada had 9 back then, but by the year 2000, it had shot up to 20. And later this month, it'll hit 55, expected to grow to 60 by the end of the decade.
There's a lot of new area codes now, and I don't know them.
Sean Iocacini runs a business that sells recycled phone numbers to customers wanting classic area codes like Toronto's 416. Numbers sell for as little as $50, though easy-to-remember ones like those ending with 4 zeros can fetch nearly $5,000.
Since 2016, we haven't had a day go by where we haven't sold a 416 phone number.
Is that still kind of cool, though, to have a 416 number?
I think so. But I'm really old.
And if you're not thrilled with 942, it is a problem you can buy your way out of. John Venevali-Rao, CTV News, Toronto.
Hoodoo, and that's a snapshot of this Thursday. Heather will be here tomorrow for all of us at CTV National News. Thank you for watching, and good night.